to come and talk to us about this, our conference, as a keynote speaker. Welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I'm indeed very privileged to be in your presence today, and those nice words summarize the work that we do at international level. As he mentioned, I'm the World Secretary General of Talent, and today I want to take it very short to make you understand the word talent in Africa, because in Africa, if you say talent, they see athletes, they see musicians, they see comedians, then they say those have got talent. So first of all, talent is defined wrongly. Every human has a talent. Talent. Ah, yeah, okay. The devil, you're defeated. Okay. Sindio. Okay. Let me give you short analysis. Then, for you to embed it, I'll give you short science. You don't need to understand the science, but to appreciate the work that we're doing. In this country, some years back, remember, I moved my daughter from class 3 to Form 1. And I was fought very hard. Those who are about my age remember the fight in Visocial Primary. I'm the same person whose child moved from class 3 to Form 1, and everybody called me an idiot. Bogus professor. I've heard it. But at age 19, my daughter from Leicester University had a PhD on nutrition and dietetics. About 4 years ago, no, this is another one, about 10 years ago, there was a young man that people were celebrating on TV, Churchill show, that you can blindfold a child and he's still seeing. Do you remember that boy? It is again in this country that you find young children about age 3 or 4, you ask, who is the president of China? Who is the vice president? The child is only 3 years. And then we go take them to Rwanda to meet the president, take them to Uganda to meet the president as a celebration with the parents. Now this is Kenya. Four years ago, one of the kits that Professor K is talking about, we're launching in Eldoret. A mother walked over and said, she doesn't know what we're doing, but her son hardly eats. She's gone to doctors, and the conclusion is that the child has attitude problems. So force the child to eat, and I could see there's some force going on. I was convinced that is the truth until mothers being mothers can insist. The following morning at the talent clinic walked over, and we decided to do what is known as a complete talent assessment, which involves 3 stages. 1, oral screening, that means a background check. Psycho-screening, meaning a trained psychologist with a bias to human metrics analyzes and makes recommendations. And finally, confirmatory test, checking the signal paths or signal patterns as communications within the body using the anthropobiometric kits. Alas, we saw that during labor, which was prolonged, there was what is called signal shaft. This shift and a shaft. Shift are mild, shafts are higher. Let me tell you about human. At the time of birth, or when you say child development, it means establishment of communication paths between the body and the brain, so that the brain is able to interpret signals and intervene. This is how God created you. But a lot of things do happen during pregnancy. food cravings, non-food items, because you lack minerals, which you call in Peru, paika, people did that research, or nyama iko na mafuta mingi, they have an impact of changing the signal paths in the fetus. And during birth, which you call the termination of signals, either we have a weak termination going to the joint, so we say you have cerebral palsy, okay? Or it is in your vocal cords, so we say you have speech problems. See, they have very minor issues about humans, because signal is sent from the brain, but not good enough to move the vocal cords. So we say you have speech problems. See, many of this is all about human. And then for this young man, the prolonged labor created what is called acute ganglion. That means those big shifts and shafts that affected the olfactory, that is the taste buds. So he had serious, sensitive taste buds. This is why the child could only taste but does not eat. And so when I saw that, I was still in that disbelief, because I can assess, but I don't have what you have, isn't it? So I'm still my own human. So I contacted my colleague, Hans Nebert from Ulm in Germany, who's an expert in those particular areas. He looked at it and he told me to do it 2 more times. I did it twice, and the result was the same. Today, and thankfully, the Israeli embassy, the young man, is in Israel. Guess who he is? He's a wine coffee taster. Now, you're seated here in Kenya because for the longest I've fought in this country, and then before they hijacked the idea to call it CBC in this country. And I asked various ministers, when I started with the late Magoa, and I asked him, this one, that is a wine coffee taster, which curriculum or syllabus is for him? And then you could see the look at me in disbelief. Ladies and gentlemen, may I tell you something? In the beginning of creation, God gave you your own unique abilities. Those unique abilities are inherent in your communication paths, because how you react is based on what happens in your body. This is the little science. So if your toe, which has a cell which can only swallow glucose, and because of indigestion or other related problems in your body, a supermolecule goes to that cell, meaning you have no glucose, then it will form a layer on that cell. This is science done in biology. But cells are criticized that should there be a supermolecule, it initiates a signal. And the signal uses the shortest path in your body to a section of the brain. And that section of the brain will initiate another signal for intervention. Let me give you an example. In such a case, it will initiate a signal. Say it passes through your left diaphragm to the left upper side of your brain. And then your brain sends a signal to the pancreas to release insulin to go and break the supermolecule. Billions and billions of such signal paths do occur in your body. And because of that, it is easy, therefore, today, for a psychologist to understand your behavior better than they used to do before. Because long ago, we used to judge intelligence by the brain power, which was most misleading. You don't understand. It could be just a chatterbox, nothing else, you know. That's all. But the human is complete in many functions. And so today, if you go with the old psychology, the brain is divided left brain and the right brain, isn't it? There are people who are left brain, everybody knows this, right brain. And there's a thin membrane, upper brain and the lower brain, generally. And that is occasioned here in the front lobe of the brain here. So the upper brain on the left represents sense, and the right side represents the volcanic brain, the brain of the non-conformed people. people don't follow rules. The musicians, the acrobats, you know them. They are there. And then the lower right, the human manual dexterity brain, the brain of physical strength. And the lower left, the brain of decision making for strategic thinkers, planners, people who are organized. You can't go to D before you pass through B and C. You understand those guys? But the upper one, those ones, we can jump anywhere, isn't it? Yeah, so we differ. So all I need to know about a human, if something occurred in your body and signals were to move, which side of the brain do you rely on most? Certain people, and this is why we differ, certain people, signals mainly go to the left upper side. And therefore, if I see that, I see, a scientist. If right upper side, or a volcanic person, most likely a musician, then we do what we call ciphering or validation to confirm the specialism. All careers are only about those four, the rest are specialism, which we validate. Nothing else about a person. Now the question is, how do I see those signals? Good question, isn't it? That's why now science come, and science has improved many, many years. Long ago, psychologists used to use what we call psychocharts. Would send you questions and see how you react. Then that was misleading. Then we had to see your eye contact. It has come a long, long, long way. Many, many years. Today, we don't really need to do that. Much as we still do oral screening where we ask questions. But now we ask more refined questions for us to explain what happened over pregnancy. How was the labor? What is postterm, preterm birth? How was 0 to 4 years? Malnutrition, blah, 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 blah. Which environment did you live? We get the oral screen, and we have a background. Of course, there's nothing about a human after 4 years. You're just growing big. Nothing else. That's why children don't talk until about age 3 and 4, because communication paths are not yet established or enhanced. As you grow beyond 4 years, we're just enhancing those same signal paths. Now, to see those paths, a number of things have taken place. We started with anthropologists, okay? An anthropologist does measurements, isn't it? They were doing measurements for garment fitting, ergonometric equipment that's like, for example, orthopedic beds. It has come a long way. Then, by accident, 3D optical sensing technology came in, cameras. Now, for those who know how cameras work, we send light and it's reflected. And then it forms your coordinates and forms a mesh. Color it, then you have your photo. Now think this other photo. A 3D optical sensing equipment sends, again, the same, but with particular bias to what are called human quantum points. You know, signals in your body, just like Safaricom, get boosted. You get me? And mainly it uses the main organs in the body. So when we have the spectrum of that from your main organs, then we can artificially, by illusion, draw your signal paths. That could take a long time from person to person. Then people in IT decided to do work on individual areas, and each batch that you're talking for, hence the relevance for this conference, the artificial intelligence toolkits for different functions. The software in big data technology, the camera, and set up in a cubicle which is symmetrically designed, produces 1 second click from a 3D optical sensing camera to get a photo of you. You know, when I was presenting somewhere, you know, basic people think very basic. Then they started going to session, they said, So those guys are liars. How can you take a photo and you know the career of a person? Because according to them, we're just taking photos. They don't understand. Okay? There's a lot more science in the background. And I'm only summarizing a lot. Before you come with an AI toolkit, for those who done IT like me, it takes a bit of work to engineer that. But then, with that advantage, in mere split of seconds, let's call it a photo. We take you a photo, but what it produces is not normal photo. Instead, it gives us the imaginary lines of paths of communication such that where signals efficiently pass, it paints green. Where is ish, it paints yellow. And where there are energy blockages, it paints red, such that when I look at the image, I can see green to the left diaphragm on the upper scale. Aha, asante. See how quickly it is. Okay? So it is that kind of research that we are continuously improving at international level. I head that research at the World Talent Federation headquarters, where I'm Secretary General, but I'm also the CEO and head of that particular research. Because of the work that we have done over the last 11 years, we have been honored for the first time in Africa to host the World Talent Conference. Should have been this year, shifted to next year in October, 26th to 30th. Among us top dignitaries, and for the reason that I came this morning, is because I was in London to talk to top footballers to come and grace the occasion. You're going to see those guys, those Premier League big guys. Some of them, I knew them. I'll not mention names because I've been told until the last 1 week. But if you know one of the best media mogul of African descent from the US, yes, she's coming. And then we're talking to top world leaders to also come and grace this occasion so that our Africans can also smell the new coffee. And the new coffee is you can no longer entertain learning without diagnosis. You are a liar. That's what I was trying to do all along. You cannot set hospitals, have syringes, have medicines, and you have no diagnosis. What kind of hospital is that? Where everybody gets an injection and any medicine. Is that a hospital? But what is our education system? Let me ask you. Do you know your child? You'll open your mouth and say yes. You know the gender, you know the color, and you know the tribe. The name. You don't know your child. You don't know. I can tell you. If you know your child, then you must know the capacity of your child. And what is this capacity? You have built universities, you built schools, you put resources there. Who are they for? And how do you know who is the best fit of what? That's why, for the longest in Africa, a born musician was forced to do linear algebra and a compulsory subject. This is Africa. And because you must pass a compulsory subject, that person lived all her life thinking she's a fool. This is Africa. But now listen. Some managed to get to a public university and then had a chance to do some music as a minor. So she went for voice recording, sang to the heavens. Thank God, internet, YouTube came. She posted. The President of the United States of America invited her to sing at his birthday. But the lecturers at the university were still saying, "You have not done your cards." This is Kenya. This is Africa. This is what we do. This is how we think. Now think again. The lecturer has never been invited to sing at the chief's birthday in Kenya. Do you understand the problem? And the lecturer wants to assess the intelligence in the music of that girl. What's going on there? There's a problem. Do you understand me? We judge a footballer by, you know, those who saw me, the KTN, that was the other year, that young man, Antonio Wendo. They read, of course, what we do, these things are described, so they came with the mother arguing. Mother was right. She says, okay, I don't have a problem with you playing football. But know that if you break your leg, you have no future. So just go to A level, you know, but we'll allow you in the evening to go and do what? Football. You know, this is how we think, isn't it? So they argued, they came, the boy is arrogant with his shaggy hair. So I said, okay, no problem, even me, I don't know. Let us do the assessment. The assessment was in the favor of the young man. High metric values, which was actually for rugby, not football. So we sent over to the groups of FIFA and scouts. So I had traveled to India, came back, and I heard I was looked for all over by KT News. Then it was still there. So you should see on our YouTube channel the interview. So the young man today is at Manchester City Academy. You should check that one out. 1.1 million pounds every quarter, now helping the mother. Now I want you to borrow something here. What is learning in today's world? You talked about AI. We talked about sustainability. We talked about leadership in all this. As a conclusion, the missing link is diagnosis. If I know who this child is, then I'll match the resources with the strength of this child. How will I match it? After assessment, we write what is called a talent report, which defines the strengths, would highlight what is weak, but that's just a report. We follow that with a learning prescription, just like doctors do a medical report followed by a prescription. So your child evolves using an individual prescription. Now what does the prescription contain? It tells us talent is measured and is measurable. And it has a unit called GENRE, G-E-N-R-E. Just leave this conference with something. An average human has 142 such genres of talent. So when we do learning prescription, this is what I wanted for Kenya. But Kenyans first want it to happen overseas, then they copy. They don't want to be in front. If you have a learning prescription, it has what they call GENRE tasks, what matches your natural abilities. And the tasks are to motivate and captivate you to exceed expectations. Think. In the early civilization, there was no teacher, but they did a lot. The natural human can do a lot if you discover the individual GENRE domains, or we call the human domiciles in our language. That is what is lacking in the Kenyan system. To have syllabus, to have curriculum is very fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But to know whose curriculum and fit of learning it is for is paramount. So that you get the best out of that person. Then, out of the assessment, you'll find multiple talented people whom we call gifted. A gift is not a talent. Gifted people form only about 10% of the world population. But every human has a talent. So usiwahi sema hapa, huyo mtu ako talent, hiyo nitajua tu ujui kila unaongea. Every human has a talent, but not every human is gifted. Multiple talents make you a gifted person, and those are very few people. There are people, and one US president was it, he could be on phone, watching baseball, and I think reading a book at the same time. There are people who are footballers, musicians, and also doctors. If you are in the Republic of Kenya, they tell you, choose your career. How? about if you got straight A's, all of them? Which one do you choose? And we know Mheshimiwa atakwambia choose the best, and the best is medicine, law, which is the other one, architecture. But if the best is supposed to be a teacher preacher, who will accept with straight A's? Nobody. Yet when they make the biggest out of their own in big churches, then we praise them. This is my final message for this conference. When we started the idea of learning diagnosis in Kenya, we were dismissed. I was with Professor Douglas Odhiambo. I was telling Mheshimiwa here, I'm very disruptive. Her predecessor, Professor Harry Kane, are really disturbed until he accepted. Professor Everest Chitanda, God rest his soul, at then Commission for Higher Education, I also gave him hell. Those nearly 20 years, if you said a child below 10 years can get a degree, what did you look like? And that was my daughter. I looked a fool. Today, go in the internet. Like you can see one of the cases dealt with Estocade, the Nigerian girl. See it, go just Google CNN Estocade, see what we did there. Today, children are learning based on their natural abilities, not by age. Because I know here we think age. No, that's not right. So today it's acceptable. Today an adult who is a former school dropout can go straight for masters. I said those 20 years ago, I was a liar. Because our system did not accept or understand that a person who dropped out in high school from 2 went to Mombasa, cooked tea for people in a clearing and forwarding company, used its natural intelligence to gain prominence, and finally bought off the degree holders, and now owns one of the biggest logistics company with a branch in New York and Dubai. In fact, our public universities send their master's degree students for internship at its logistics company, and they must sign that they are good, competent enough to graduate. But when he goes to the same university, he's told he's not qualified. Now he's fooling who here. This is Kenya. Because we don't understand. But if we did a diagnosis, we will find a lot of natural credit values, life achievement values, work experiential values, which we convert into learning credits, transfer under the international system of credit transfer. And this is under UNESCO, by the way. We did that in Korea, actually, 2005. Then you'll find the value of the person today and not judged by the dropout 23 years ago. Thank you very much, and thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you.